All right, so we are live. I'm going to do the countdown and then we will be ready to begin. I don't know, Angel. Let me see if you're a moderator. Are you a moderator? You are a moderator. It says you can pin comments. If you're like me, maybe you don't know how. No offense, operator malfunction. I understand. All right, so again, welcome to everyone. My name is Tina Durbin. I'm the host of Love Over Coffee Voices. We used to say not heard, but lots of people have said voices now heard. And so I kind of like it. We have definitely grown and changed. Oh, I do have to show you one thing. I don't know if you can see it or not, Sally, but I have this little thing on my laptop against the screen, and it says, "This home runs on coffee," and you can flip it over and it says love.
Oh,
So when you look back, you'll be able to see it. So, oh, Angel, Angel can't pin her own comment. That's what she was having trouble with. Um, I have set the goal tonight at 5 of the hand hearts, and tomorrow night I'll set it for 6. So I decided to do the goal to be the hand hearts, and each night I'll add one, and hopefully by the time we get to 31, we will have built enough of an audience to help us get there. Um, 20,000 likes gets us to the FYP, and there you go. That's about all I know about TikTok. Moderators tonight are Sue and Angel, and I know that Nicole may not be able to be here. Please love and like and share the video out, because that will help us get to the FYP, but also share with your friends anyone that you think could benefit from or need support of. We've got a Facebook user that's online. I don't see your name, but I have a feeling it's either Carol or Karen. And so, with that, I will begin. So, Sally Polly Hershey is a dear friend of mine that I met a couple of years ago on Clubhouse. And I will tell you that my healing journey got a big jump start when I met Sally. And there was a big community of us who were just beginning to find our way during the pandemic. And I know that she's instrumental in me, like, getting off my ass, setting a date, and saying, okay, this podcast has been in my head and I just need to do it. And so I set the date June 1st, 2021. And Sally, along with a few others, were instrumental in just getting us going. Just getting us going. It was just getting us going. And so Sally was a very early guest. So, Sally Polly Hershey, not much has changed in this sense. I always start with the same question. Tell us who you are, where you've been, and where you're going, and I'll let you tell us.
oh, okay. I love it. Thank you for having me, and I'm so happy to be here. And I couldn't wait to catch up because it has been a while. Um, so I'm Sally Polly Hershey. Polly is my maiden name. Um, I had met Tina and a whole group of other folks on Clubhouse, and it was just amazing and perfect timing, right? I mean, we all helped each other was heal through telling our story, and Tina gave us the platform to be, and so many the platform to do this, and I so appreciate that. And I just wanted to update because it has been a while. I haven't been in Clubhouse for over a year. I
You're
went
not missing much.
yeah. I went back to work full time because I was part time, and that was a change for me. So in May of 22, I went back full time, and I'm like, what the heck did I do? But I found out that I didn't have a lot of bandwidth, for a lot of the stuff I was doing, and all my free time that I did have, I wanted to spend, basically with the kids or have some downtime, and that included cutting cutting my relationship off too with my boyfriend. So I have been single for over a year now. In July was like a year, so, and happier than ever. So much peace and just presence. I spoke with Tina a little bit before this, and just like the presence of and the peace, um, just being there, because this is the moments, those are the moments you're going to take with you when you go. So I do miss everybody dearly, and we mentioned, it's a different part of the healing journey. Um, Not so much, the craziness, and there's very little craziness because there's just you just don't focus on it anymore in my life. And a lot of the relationship that I have still have with my ex-husband, because he does, help out with the kids and stuff, is just that. It doesn't phase me. He's very helpful with the kids, and I think a lot of that has to with me healing, has to do with me healing. So yeah, that's what I've been focusing on: my career, the kids, and just living life. And
Now, are you still doing some of your life coaching stuff on the side, or has that?
no,
What is your position at this point?
yeah, no, nothing. I don't do, can I let you in on something? I never could bring myself to charge anybody for my services.
Yeah, Sally, I completely understand, because I know that I created a subscription box, and it's a love and a passion, but it ain't gonna pay the bills unless I can get rid of the job that pays the bills.
Right.
And I don't know how to do that. So I totally get it.
Yes.
Because I the same. I don't want to charge people for. I don't want to say, well, you can't afford this box, so you can't heal. No, I'm not going to do that.
Right, because we remember where we were, right? When at the beginning, you're left on your own, and to financial, are blah, and you don't have a penny to spare, because you were used to, at least in my case too, the two income household, right? And he was the breadwinner.
Right.
And I remember the worst thing that he said, and I'll never forget this, was, and these are the things I play back sometimes just to remind myself, like, yeah, he may seem like he's, nice and stuff now, and it's very helpful, but remember what you went through. But it was tear up your credit card and live off your salary. Yeah, that's basically what he told me. Knowing that I was part-time for a reason,
50% of our life goal has already been completed.
Woo!
Woo-hoo!
Wow.
Thank you so much, everybody. So Sally, for us who are narcissistic abuse survivors, and I am in that category, and for me it was the weirdest, craziest damn thing I have ever experienced in my freaking damn life, and never want to go again. I feel like there were lots of baby narcs along the way. I just didn't really know what I was seeing or what I was even experiencing. And for me, I didn't know what it was. So Sally is someone who educated a lot of us about some of the basics. So Sally, in your mind, because I know in my mind, abuse meant he hit me. But in my own situation, that was not the case. There was never physical abuse. I do realize there was some physical abuse indirectly by all of the nervous system and just the constant craziness and anxiety and the PTSD, but he never physically hit me. So what is narcissistic abuse when it does or doesn't include the physical aspect?
Yeah, I think when I look back, and the biggest telltale signs, I've always been, that person that wanted to make everybody happy, the people pleaser, right? So everything was always about him. Um, a good test, I guess, if you want to know if they have some narcissistic traits, is do they laugh at your jokes? But continue to? Do they share the spotlight with you? Um, are they happy for you? Because a lot of the times I felt like there were so many big achievements that I had, but I didn't share them because I didn't want to take the
Right.
spotlight from him, but the smallest things that he did were huge, and it was always the
Right.
story was always about him. I think those are very, very huge, especially when you're dating, because he seemed almost jealous of me or the relationships that I would have with people when we first got together, and it's very interesting. It's always about them, so that's a huge telltale sign.
Did he want to attach himself quickly to your friends, but then devalue your friends at the same time behind closed doors? Like, was it like the social charmer?
Yeah. Yes, it was like coming in between. Well, at first I would say that he played into my family because I'm very close with my sisters and my mom. But then toward the end, that's what he pitted against me. Like, you're not like to move you away and stuff like that. So yeah, I think they try to fit in and then eventually slowly tear it apart and use that. They learn you, right? They learn that relationship. They actually want to take over that relationship, right? They want to be closer to your family than you are to your family, which is so strange. So strange. And that's what I say, Tina. I'm like, we don't understand it, and thank God we don't understand it, because
Right. I think it's dangerous in the sense that we do, as people who seek knowledge, love, and information, we want to understand and make some sense of it, and yet we are not them, which is a beautiful thing, and we will never make sense of the craziness. As you said earlier, the only good thing that came out of it is I can share with others and hope to help them avoid something or maybe leave something sooner. Yeah. Because I was 50 when I met the individual that I was involved with. And I look back now on Facebook posts that I made, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, and I can tell by what I'm writing that there were already incidents of, unexplained time absences and stories that didn't match with whatever, and things that he love bombed me about were all the things that annoyed him later. And I can see it now, but at the time when you're being love bombed, they are like a mirror, and you are the best thing since sliced bread. Yeah. Until they want wheat bread and you're white bread, and they're just like, thank you so much for helping us achieve that goal. Amazing. We'll repeat that goal and see what happens. So thank you, everyone. So what would your definition of narcissism be?
Shoot, definitely all about themselves. A big ego for really no reason, right? A lot of the times they're not that great looking, although I think my ex still is. But a lot of, they just build up this facade about themselves, and you buy into it because you're exposed to it over and over again, right? They sell themselves over and over again. But I really feel that it comes from, a sense of insecurity, a lack of feeling, right? They really walk through the world like with no feeling, and
a sense of entitlement at the same time. Yes. It's almost like, it's like
I deserve
what the world gives me. I'm a victim, but at the same time, I'm entitled to what the world says I don't deserve. So it's like but that's where I call it the flip of the flop. I mean, really, they're a chameleon. Whatever button will push you to make the decision that makes them first, they will twist and spin and manipulate that one little thing that makes them get what they need from you. And that's very confusing because in the beginning you give it freely because you love them.
Yes.
So how long into your relationship did you start to figure things out? And then put in the back of your mind, what was your childhood like? And I'm very careful with this question because I know there are people out there, it sounds like victim blame or shame, but when you figure out what led you to them in a way that was able to be capitalized on by them, you can start to heal. And that's a fine line because I never want to make anyone think that you own the abuse, but you own your healing. Yes. And the healing means looking at the patterns of past behaviors and past relationships, good or bad, right or wrong, real or imagined. You got to get there. And that's a hard place to get to. So think about, tell us a little bit about your relationship, of course, what you feel safe and comfortable sharing.
Sure.
And at the same time, your childhood and some of the things that you have figured out about your own healing journey.
Yes. So it goes back to the people pleasing. I definitely always was happy-go-lucky Sally, regardless of what I was going through. So I was raised in a poor, family. We were on welfare growing up, and my mom was diagnosed with a mental disorder. So she was fine though. She was on medication. She was fine. She just never worked, so she had men in and out and stuff like that. But I was always the one that would make the family laugh. And no matter what we went through, I would be the people pleaser and make the family laugh. So I see that. Already. Yeah. And I would take on like the feelings of everybody. Like it was up to me to make them happy. So I see where that came from. I love that about myself, honestly, but I do have to reel it in. And so the biggest thing I realized in my relationship, in my marriage, was again, it was everything to please him. I was on the back burner, and that's what we're going to find through all these stories. We were always on the back burner because that's the kind of love that we have, right? But with that type of love, with that empathy that we have, the boundaries was huge. That putting those boundaries feels so weird at first, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And now I love it. It's my favorite thing to do. My favorite thing to do is cut people off.
Even to speak up, though, to set the boundary, it's like I have to dig all the way to my feet and tell someone you just hurt my feelings. Like that is huge. But yeah.
No, and I still to this day am not good at confrontation. I don't feel there ever really needs to be, because that's you taking on somebody else's energy. You can just walk away.
Right.
You can just walk away. I mean, unless it's my kids, but I'm not going to have that relationship with my kids. But I just recently had something at work where I'm like, I'm not doing it. I don't have to. I'm a grown up.
Sally, that is so up. I knew catching up with you would help me also because, and that's one of the things, sharing your story. And, many of us, it takes a while to get there. And I don't know, except I just knew that his abuse of me and so many others, and there has been a line before me, during me, and after me, is that abuse, it rests and it grows in those crevices of lies and secrets and privacy. And so I knew early on, you can say whatever you want to say because your story changes every day. And my story has been the same from the very beginning. And I'm going to tell my story. And your story, I don't know what story you're telling today, and I don't really care. But I knew that being public, because as much as he wants to spin things, I know that there are a long line of us. And so it was like, I know you don't really want to be exposed, whatever your narrative is today. And so go ahead. I'm not going to defend myself against your craziness.
Yes.
But at the same time, you get to the point where it's like, I don't know what you're doing and I don't want to be a part of it. And you just push people away. So how have you, I guess, wrestled with that small, because Angel and I were talking today. My circle is about as small as a pinhead.
I do.
Because, I mean, listen, you piss me off and
Yep.
I'll piss you right out the door.
Yes.
I just don't, I can't even play the game or pretend to play the game. I don't have the energy.
Nope.
And I'm not going to try to bring you up to my speed if you're not able to drive the car.
Yep.
I can't get there.
Yep.
So how have you reconciled some of that, or have you, or do you just?
I just live it and love it. I really do. I look forward to the day. I love my kids. I really do. I look forward to the day that they're grown up. I have my own place by myself, maybe with a cat or two. and I'm on the coast somewhere. I really do visualize myself like just being able to take care of just myself. Not saying that I won't, I really feel like my kids are going to be close to me and I'm going to be close to them. But I just am so looking forward to like Sally not having to take care of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is why, some of us have patterns of behavior and a trail of relationships where, because we're searching for that partner who can be that safe, peaceful, restful place to fall. If they don't provide it, but they love bomb us, we can certainly, listen, I can create the scenario and just bring you along.
Yes.
But,
Just don't talk. Just tell them not to talk and we're good.
I have a friend that she says, I can meet you today and not even like you very much, but buddy, I could still build a relationship with you and like you and love.
I'm very romantic in my head.
She said, I can wake up with feelings even though I don't even think you're that cute, but
Oh my God.
And it's the truth, and it's a hard reality. That's where, again, the patterns, and it goes back to, and I've said this before, this month's box, shameless plug here, I know. My subscription box this month is focused on healing that inner child, because the inner child endured trauma and learned to survive the best way she could.
Yep.
And sometimes we're mad at her because her behaviors and patterns is what predicts our future. But she was in survivor mode. We just didn't know it. And her coping skills are based on what she taught herself, basically.
Right.
And sometimes we have to go back in time and hold the hand of that inner child and bring her forward and say, it's okay. And those coping skills, some of them work, some of them don't work. You can still be loving, but you got to do this instead. And, and that's that's one of the things that you talk about, the whole self-love and self-care and healing trauma and inner child work. So talk about that a little bit.
Oh yes, that was like my favorite stuff on Clubhouse, because as much as, I mean, I hope that I help people, but I'm telling you, I benefited so much more because I was learning from them, like just sharing and hearing what people do and taking on and trying out different things. A huge thing that's so strange to so many people, but it's catching on, is ASMR. And I when I used to listen to like guided meditation on there, um, I just remember like focusing and getting some sort of chill from like certain people's voices and stuff. And I said, oh my gosh, there's a reason for this. And so I do almost every night listen in to like either scratching, or it's so crazy, but it takes your mind off of anything. Like I fall asleep to it, and it's
It's
just
true.
oh my gosh. And they say it's so good for anxiety. Now, I don't have any, but I didn't really have issues with it before. But I can see how, because you're not, like you said, how, crafting and stuff helps you. It's an escape, right? It's an escape, and it lets you just have that peace. And I'm not thinking about stuff before I fall asleep now. It's very comfortable for me. So different things like that. But finding
Thank
out
you,
what
Sue.
works for you. Yeah. I love it.
Somebody says, "Good job, Tina," and I'm thinking, what's going on here? I'm trying to watch TikTok. I'm trying to watch over here, and it's listen, narcissism will teach you to multitask. Like,
Yeah, that's very
there's no
true.
other. It's like I can
couldn't do
listen to
it.
you and not hear a damn word you're saying. Okay. It's a terrible reality, but it's
But the inner child, you were saying, the inner child,
yes.
I mean, I think that's huge because I had never heard about that before. Also learned that in Clubhouse, and it's so true. Like just reaching back to that child, and what would you tell that child now? What would you tell yourself, at that age? Think about when you kind of lost your light, and what made you, what was it that, why did you lose your light? And I think one shocking thing to me was like, oh my gosh, I know why I never tried harder or thought I deserved anything, because poor kids don't get that stuff. I had rich friends, but poor kids don't get that stuff. So why even try? So that was a lot of what was holding me back. But now I go back and I hold that little girl's hand, and I'm like, I give her the love at my age now, right? Almost 48. And the 4 or 5 year old, well, that's probably 6 around the time, Sally. And just as a parent now, I just, and not saying that my mom, I love my mom. My mom has a wonderful heart. She did the best she could, and she still does to this day. But the men in her life, like she chose the men over me. And I think not just me, but my sisters too. It was us 4 girls and my mom. But I think that's a huge reason of why I'm single now, because I realized that I did not have a lot of time, and the time that I did have, I wanted to give to my kids, because that time's fleeting. They're 14 and 12 now, and I know it's going to go so fast. So yeah, that inner child work though, just reaching back and seeing, and just saying, you are loved, you are not alone, you matter. And was just amazing, because it takes you there, right? You've done the guided meditations before, I imagine, where you actually walk through, and it's so realistic.
What is that line from Help? You is smart, you is pretty, you is kind.
Oh, I love that.
I love that movie, because she was being raised in a home where somebody else was taking care of her, not her parents. And yet her parents were very busy, leaving her in the care of someone that they didn't really honor and respect because of the color of her skin. And so here's this Black houseworker taking care of the white child, and that person was making the white child feel more loved than her own parents, while they were trying to make their housekeeper not equal. It's the craziest movie, but when you think about it, it all came full circle. So I know Um, one of the other things is, how do you self-love and self-care? What kinds of things do you do, Sally? What does it look like for you?
Oh, so I still try to keep in shape. That's huge for me. I still, though, while doing that, enjoy my junk foods. So I do a balance of that way. I'm not hard on myself anymore. I love whatever phase I'm going through. And I mentioned earlier, maybe just to you when we were talking before this, um, that I try to see every opportunity, right? Not maybe everything that's challenging to me in life. Maybe it's a lesson I need to learn instead of the outlook on things, right? Changing because we have control over it. I know a lot of times we don't feel like we do, but once we address why we're feeling a certain way about a situation, um, that next time it happens, right? I think that's what we talk about. You're prepared for it, and you're like, oh, that's why I'm feeling this way. Any of those triggers that we are aware of them, and we can address them with a kind of a, okay, I see you. I'm not going to ignore you. I'll acknowledge you, but you're not going to get me today. And the more you do that, the less that it tries. In my head, that's the way I think. Like
Right.
it's less that it even comes into my thoughts.
So
Any of the negative.
what do you, I guess, there's I said it last night, I think sometimes we think that there was an old you that was better before the abuse, and then there's a new you after the abuse because you're starting to learn how to do this and that differently. And really, there wasn't an old you that was bad, and there's not a new you that's better. There's just a greater you that's constantly evolving. So when you look back at the Sally that met the guy, and then Sally that dated a new guy, and Sally that is now alone, do you see things that are the same about Sally? Or has Sally?
Oh yeah, my laughter's come back. So before my marriage, I was, like I said, I was the one that would make everybody laugh, but he was good too, right? He was funny too. So a lot of my stuff went, you know, down because so that he could, rise.
Mm,
And then they get to that point where like you don't feel funny because you used to know that was like the best thing about me, right? They'll diminish the best thing about you, and that's what happened, and that's back now. And it's
mm,
funny because my boyfriend that I had right after, he was funny as hell and we were funny together. And he allowed me to be that way. And it brought it back and he appreciated it and we could laugh together. I'm like, yes, this is what it's supposed to be like.
right.
And now I just crack myself up and I say, she's back. She's back.
Yeah, yeah.
And not caring about what others think, just being yourself, right?
Right, right. Just being yourself. And but now, Sally, when how long were you married?
19 years.
19 years. So when you left that relationship, um, can you talk about what it felt like initially? I mean, when you're in these kinds of relationships, narcissistic, toxic, abusive, whatever the label is, you lose yourself, because I know in my own situation, you shrink, you
Oh,
start to
yes.
shrink,
Yes.
and in your shrinking, you become very quiet, and they certainly take over the forefront because they were always there to begin with, in the
Yes.
forefront. So, what did Sally have to relearn? Because I didn't even know like what pizza I liked. I mean, it was.
Yeah. My biggest thing, and I've always said this, was being alone, because if I think about it, I've had a boyfriend since I was like 12, 13 years old. So I went from, it may be spans of a couple years or whatever, but I've always had somebody there. And that's how my mom was. Like she always had a guy there, and it was being alone. especially the first night he took the kids after our, we separated, and in the house without anybody. And I honestly felt alone. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And that was the biggest thing. And then, over time, you deal with it. I asked the Lord to hold me close, because I'm like, if you're the best person too, you're the only one I got right now. And from that night on, I it slowly started to be okay. And then I said, "Oh, are you getting the kids this weekend?"
Right.
And then it just over time. But I know that was the biggest thing, because I just didn't like being alone. I just didn't know what to do with being alone, and now I love it.
Well, and I think I've come to that same place. It's almost like, for a long time, noise was so normal. Like and I'm talking about the noise of the house, but also the noise of keeping busy, 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 busy. And now I realize that quiet was underrated, because I really like doing my own thing in my own space, just at my own pace. Um, you can tell I'm spoken pace, place.
Space.
You know, I mean, I definitely enjoy the downtime. And that's actually a good thing, because I, like you, it's been a constant search for that dynamic duo, power team, couple, partner, and it's okay for there not to be someone. Dating yourself, or, I say I'm in a relationship with God, a cup of coffee, and a few friends online, because the rest was so crazy, that I couldn't separate it all. So what about your children? How, how have they reconciled the divorce, but also to what degree do they understand and know all of the dynamic, or do they get
Yeah.
it?
Yes. And so a big thing is, they were 10 and 8 at the time, I believe. And so my son was 10 and my daughter was 8. And they were mad at me at first. And, that was like, that was they didn't understand it at that age. But over the years, they've caught on. But at first they were, I would say, mad at me, because obviously he painted a good picture and I was the bad guy, and so why are you kicking dad out? And so over time it played out. And but at that stage, he was my son's hero. He was the football coach. He did all that, you know what I'm saying? So it was a real smack in the face to my son. But he's 14 now, my son, and he's wonderful, and they have a great relationship. And the biggest thing I felt, like, that summer, because it happened like around summertime, I just let them do and say whatever they wanted to. We it was just a free for all around here. And then after school started that next school year, we put things in place again. But I think having given them that space to be themselves and to say whatever they want, feel whatever they want, and we kind of went through it together. And we're so strong now. I'm so proud of them. Yeah, he's big into football, and my daughter's big into theater, and their drive for what they love is amazing, and I just can't be more proud of them. And my ex for being a part of that, because a lot of the times you'll see, that's what I was scared of. Is he not going to be in their lives? And am I going to have to be like, well, you know how a lot of times the father will say, I'm coming to pick up the kids, and then they don't show up. I was like, what am I going to do about that? So
Right.
thank God I didn't have to deal with that. But Yeah, they're thriving and doing very well, and I'm very happy to have this relationship and time with them.
When they come, so, when they come home, because, we hear a lot about um, abusers having impact negatively on the victim, okay, because constantly blaming the victim for why we're not a family anymore, but also always trying to do something legally and that kind of thing. But so there are many scenarios. They play out many times in the same way. There are little nuggets of commonality, but have your children seen anything when they come home and they're mad at dad? Do you just stay out of it? Do you just let it unfold? What do you do? What advice can you give someone who is a parent with an abuser, and in particular perhaps a narcissistic abuser? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say
Sounds
I would definitely say early on, there was a lot of toxicity they would bring home with them. And then a lot of times I don't want to go. But as they got older, one big thing that was pushed in the self love, self care stuff that I learned from people is not taking on heaviness of others. And so I try. I don't want to say I tried because it really did work. Explaining to the kids that this is throughout anybody, throughout school, wherever you are, and even with your dad, don't take on their heaviness. And they don't. And I think back then when they were younger, they didn't know and they were used to it in the household, right? But as they got older, that not taking on other people's heaviness, they'll realize that that's not mine to carry. Dad's upset about this, but that's dad. That's that. I don't.
right.
It's not on me to make him happy. But so once they started pushing back, and they are very outspoken, and I love it. To their dad, to anybody, they say it, and so that's how they've dealt with that, and I see that as a great quality throughout life.
Well, and I was going to say, there, I mean, I guess with anything, especially as a parent, I mean, the children's healing came through your own healing. Their experiences come through your experiences. And so, just as your mom had influence on you, good or bad, you've had influence on them, and so has he. And so, at the end of the day, we've all endured trauma, and we've all endured figuring it out and developing coping skills. And so at some point in time, it just comes around. It just comes around. And I think it comes around for some of us older than we imagined.
Yes.
And maybe for some, I mean, if your children are speaking out and that kind of thing, I mean, that's a good thing. They've learned from you about boundaries and expression, and because I know that those things are hard for people pleasing empaths.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'll find myself still some mornings getting ready, and I can't get out of the house, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, this stuff I can't get out. And then you know what my daughter does? She just shuts the door because she knows that's not her heaviness. That's mom in a situation. And I sometimes I get frustrated. I'm like, do you hear me? And then it's like, but I'm so after it all settles, I'm like, I'm so glad she can do that, because I would have taken that on.
Right,
As a kid, I would have
right,
taken that on.
right.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
looking back at my own childhood, I realized what I took on. My mom was the peacekeeper, my dad was the breadwinner, and for me, I always was stuck between trying to wrangle the three oldest children into doing the right thing. And I was always trying to do the right thing. And, and I pushed myself to go to school and do all those things. And yet sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, my dad was up yelling at the three oldest kids because they were, out drunk or doing something. And it was like, can't they just follow the rules and be quiet? Why do we, and now I realize though how that played out, and I
Yes.
didn't speak up then. I just internalized it. Like in my, because I think a lot of what happens in all relationships from childhood to death, um, a lot of us process in our head but never say it out loud for
Definitely.
fear of it'll sound stupid or it'll sound crazy or it'll be the loss of a friendship that's important to us. And,
Right.
and so we just hold it in rather than share it out. And I know for me, sharing it out sometimes seems natural, but I still only share what I really want to share. But the other thing is figuring out like what to share and how to share and how to ask for help. That was my
Oh
that
yeah.
was my biggest thing, was asking for help.
Oh
So
yes.
how did you figure out some of that, Sally?
I haven't. I still haven't.
Right.
No, I'm terrible with that because I always feel like everything will work. I think we're a lot alike in that aspect, Tina, because I think everything will work itself out, and I don't want to bring anybody down. And you know what I mean? I think we're in the same boat on that.
Yeah, sometimes I just turn off the lights in the house and I just cry.
Yeah.
And I figure that after I cry, it'll just somehow fix itself.
I hear you. I hear you. And it's that feeling, like you said, we're like waiting for, and it's going to happen. It really is, because it's going to happen. But that's why I'm trying to be in the moment and take it all in, and just know that we're here at this exact moment for a reason.
Right.
And
Right.
have those experiences, and it
Well,
will all come.
as Sue is saying, we over process, and Lord knows when I had the word narcissism as an explanation, it just took me down the rabbit hole. But the rabbit hole, you can stay down in that rabbit hole for quite some time, and that's not necessarily always a good thing. So, at what point did you have the word narcissism and narcissist and narcissistic abuse? At what point were you able to label it and understand it and educate yourself, but then also like switch from the narcissism to the healing? Like at what point?
Yeah, what's funny is when you're in this type of relationship, you might not realize what's going on, but a huge thing for me was I couldn't give at home, right? He wasn't accepting. I had so much love to give, but he wasn't accepting it, right? That was huge for me. So I felt like I was kept down. So I volunteered in everything, right? I was out there doing everything. And at one point, I even volunteered for domestic violence place where I was like an advocate. And during the training that we had to take, they talked about verbal abuse. And I'm like, and mental abuse. And I'm like, holy cow, that's the name of it. That's what it is. And I started to like look into it. And then, just during like the research of it all, I'm like, that's what's going on with me. This is, and then somehow narcissist came up, and I'm like, that is him. That is him.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys ever try to go to counseling or do any of the?
Yeah, that we once we decided to separate, we wanted to try, or I wanted to try counseling.
That one last ditch effort. So
yeah,
you gave it your all.
Yes. and had I not done that, I would have, like we've always talked about this too, Tina. Everybody has their time when it's time for them they feel bad that they stayed so long, but everybody has a time frame for themselves and when it's right, because if you leave before, or we talk somebody into leaving before they're ready, unless, something physical is going on. But for the mental part of it, that person will always wonder, did I give everything?
Right.
If you give everything and you get out and you're like, I know I did, like, you don't look back, because
Right.
but sometimes when people are told to leave before it's their time, right? They look back and then they go back.
They go
So
back. Right.
yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things, I do want to make sure, yesterday there was an emergency alert system. And, we have to remember that um, victims don't always know what to do or say, or how to do or how to say what's happening. And so, yesterday there was a lot of discussion about turning off the phone. Victims sometimes have to make a secret plan because it may be very dangerous physically. But I know that in my situation, while I did not fear something physically dangerous, it still can be a dangerous time, because when an abuser loses control, you just never know what that can look like. I have a couple of situations in my past with friends that were both murdered by an abuser. And, yesterday it was like, turn off your hidden phone. Because it will vibrate, it will alert. And when you are alone, unopen the phone, or, open the phone and turn it back on so that all those notifications won't be coming through.
Wow.
Because that's what will happen. And, I think sometimes we just don't think about it.
No, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. When it's not us personally anymore, we forget sometimes what someone else may be experiencing. And, that can be a scary time when you're trying to break away and you've gotten close enough to where you actually have a phone that nobody knows about, and then the damn thing goes off. And because that was the problem during the pandemic, there were a lot of people stuck at home with an abuser who weren't able to get a break at all from the abuser, because they were working from home or unable to work and even get out of the house for any contact with anyone else. So, I've been asking everyone this question, Sally. When you look back and you were experiencing what you were experiencing and coming to understand that it was an abusive situation, what do you think someone could have said or done that might have made a difference? And was there anybody that said something that resonated with you somehow, that stuck in your brain?
I think finding groups like we have would have really, really helped. Having Clubhouse, I think we all talked about that back then, would have really helped. But no, like, I had no idea what it was. So I think if we had this knowledge, or at least these platforms like we do now, and all these advocates out there, I think that would have really helped then get out sooner. The realization of it, because that's what it's about. Like, people would pop into our rooms, right, Tina? And they were like, holy cow, they're telling my story, but they didn't realize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't realize it had a name, and everybody's story is a little similar. Like, we have a lot of things in common. I think that would have really helped.
I know for me, as I started to unravel the craziness, it was, and it all started happening around the same time. And again, I'm going to tell my story on the 11th of October. But I realize now that it came from a lot of different places. It came from someone made a post on the book. Someone said the word narcissism. He was love bombing someone else, and so he was gone all the time.
Oh.
And my anxiety was coming down. At the same time, I was starting to reconnect with old friends who knew me long before he ever knew me. And it was interesting because they would say, you seem different. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? For the longest time, I didn't say anything. Oh, everything's fine, And then eventually it's like, coincidences, God's way of remaining anonymous, the world, the universe lines up, synchronicities, I don't know, Mercury retro, whatever. It started to just all come together. And as it all came together, it just started to make more sense. And the more I learned, the more I read, then the more I realized that there was a trail of me's behind him, during him, and after me. There have been a trail of me's. And, but again, going back to the whole people pleasing, Sally, I'm sure, will attest, as much as we can love the world, we cannot save the world. That's a hard.
Right. And then we give so much of ourselves, there's like nothing left of us. And
right. Yeah. So saving the world is not a reality. And then we're taught that saving yourself is selfish.
yes.
Get over that. Saving yourself is okay. And I have a statement, pro me is not anti you, but it could be if you don't play your cards right.
Right.
As far as, we're not playing this game. But, I just want to say again, Sally was instrumental in my own healing, but healing is reciprocated and reciprocal, definitely, because when she tells her story and I tell my story, we see the similarities, we see the differences, but we also see the growth and the change and the healing. And, I'm so happy to have caught up with you, Sally. I'm so glad that you could be a guest tonight. Do you have any final words? Uh-oh.
I'm just looking for my charger because I'm running out of.
Well, and I was going to say, next time we need to think about that poem you wrote to your inner child, Sally.
Yes.
So, because that's powerful, but we don't want to lose you. But I understand the whole need for charging. So, do you have any final words for anyone out there listening?
Yeah, I would say, hang on to those resources that have helped you so far. Definitely with Tina, keep following, and all those folks that have helped you in the past, and tell your story. Don't be afraid to tell your story, because really that's what we have to relate to other people and to validate, right? That was the huge part of this, because we felt like we were crazy coming out of this, like it's us that's the issue. But to get that, to hear that you're not alone, and to get that validation from others who have been in a similar situation, not the same situation, but similar, really, really does help, right? You to be able to heal and see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And everybody's on a different part of the journey. So I appreciate hearing everybody's story. It really does help.
It really does help. Well, I want to say thank you again to everyone on TikTok who, joined us, whether you're a watcher, a listener, a liker, a gifter, whatever you're out there doing. Please, thank you so much for stopping by enough to care enough to listen to a little bit of Sally's story. I also want to say, thank you for We're at almost 18,000. We're a little over 18,000 likes. We met our goal. Those are all things that get more of the message out. Tomorrow night, my guest will be Angela Smith. She is also a survivor, and she does a lot with collaboration for books, so that people can tell their story in writing. I joined a team to do the same thing. So perhaps tomorrow I will share my story that appeared in a book, or I'll save it for when I guess, share my own story. Sally, you know I love you.
Love you, lady.
You know we've been through hell and back, but you know what? We're living heaven now.
That's
And
right.
sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes, and and I just got to say, Sally doesn't drink coffee. I don't know what is wrong with her.
No, I do.
You
I
do?
drink coffee.
I thought you didn't.
Oh, so I went to decaf for a while, but girl, I'm back.
Oh, thank God. I mean, I was gonna listen. I can love her, but I ain't gotta like that she don't like coffee. I'm just gonna say it. I tell you, these. I mean, I don't know what these people do that don't like coffee. Do they actually get enough sleep?
Right.
So, Sally is on Instagram as.
Gosh, what am I? Am I Sally Polly Hershey there? I don't even know. I think I'm Sally Polly Hershey.
Okay, and over here on TikTok, I tagged her in my I guess in my post earlier. So just I hear a noise. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm just going to say thank you to all on TikTok. My moderators were Sue and Angel, and also Nicole, who couldn't be here tonight. Cat Links is also. I think it's because my phone's getting hot, Sally. That's what my phone's doing. Yeah. So thank you all again for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow night to hear Angel Smith's story. So I'm going to go ahead and end the live on TikTok. And so I will see you later. Bye. All right. And now, I don't know. Where is that coming from?
No, I hear it though. It's like robotic.
It's weird. It's almost, I don't know if it's coming from my microphone or I hear myself double. It's weird. So, okay, well, thank you, everyone. Hey, Shirley. Hey, Sweet Corner. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. So hold on, Miss Sally.